I get a text from an unknown number every night saying I love you. It has happened for 1 year. My name is Sarah. I am 36 years old. I have one son named Eli. Eli is 9 years old. He is autistic. He does not speak with his mouth the way other children do. He has never said the word mama, not once in his whole life, though I know he understands far more than people assume when they first meet him. Eli communicates through a small tablet, a device with pictures and words he can press with his finger, slowly building sentences one piece at a time. Every night at exactly 9 o'clock, my phone buzzes on my nightstand. The same message appears, from a number I do not recognize, with no name attached. I love you. Just 3 words, nothing more. No punctuation games, no follow-up questions, no explanation. Just those 3 words, every single night, for an entire year now. At first, I thought it was a strange mistake, a wrong number perhaps, someone meaning to text a person they loved but accidentally reaching me instead. I replied once, early on. "Who is this?" I typed. No response came. The messages continued anyway, steady as a heartbeat, every night at 9 o'clock, regardless of my silence. My sister thinks I should report it to the police. My coworkers think it is creepy, perhaps even dangerous. But I have never once felt afraid when that message arrives. Instead, strangely, I feel something closer to comfort. To understand why, I must explain my life with Eli, and how this all began. I adopted Eli when he was 3 years old. His birth mother could not care for him, overwhelmed by circumstances I never learned the full details of, and the adoption agency told me only that he had been diagnosed with autism early, that his needs would likely be significant, that many families before me had declined to take him for exactly that reason. I did not decline. From the moment I held him, something in me simply knew. He did not look at me the way other babies look at their mothers, did not coo or babble the way the books described. But he gripped my finger tightly with his small hand, and that was enough for me. I brought him home that same week. The early years were difficult in ways I had never prepared for. Eli did not sleep through the night until he was almost 6. He would scream for hours sometimes, overwhelmed by sounds or lights or textures that meant nothing to me but clearly meant everything to him. I learned slowly, through trial and error, through long nights reading research papers at my kitchen table, how to help him feel safe in a world that often overwhelmed his senses. By the time Eli turned 7, we had found a rhythm together. He attended a specialized school during the day. I worked as a part-time bookkeeper from home, structuring my entire schedule around his needs. We were not wealthy, but we were stable, and most importantly, Eli was finally beginning to communicate, slowly, through his tablet, in ways that let me glimpse the rich inner world I always suspected existed behind his quiet eyes. I remember the first time he used his tablet to ask for something specific, rather than simply pointing or crying out of frustration. He wanted apple juice instead of water one afternoon, and he carefully pressed the picture symbol himself, looking up at me with an expression I can only describe as quiet pride. I cried in the kitchen that day, overwhelmed by how far we had come together since those exhausting early years. Around that time, I hired a young man named Daniel to help with Eli's overnight care a few nights each week. I worked occasional late shifts doing bookkeeping for a restaurant chain, and I needed someone trained in Eli's specific routines, someone patient enough to handle the unpredictable nature of caring for a nonverbal autistic child through the night. Daniel came recommended by Eli's school, a young man studying special education at the local university, gentle and remarkably patient with children who needed extra time and extra grace. For 2 years, Daniel worked with us 3 nights a week. He learned Eli's routines carefully, the exact order Eli needed his blankets folded, the specific song that calmed him during nighttime meltdowns, the particular way Eli liked his water glass filled exactly halfway and no more. Daniel never complained, never seemed frustrated, even during Eli's hardest nights. But raising Eli alone, even with Daniel's help a few nights a week, exhausted me in ways I rarely admitted to anyone. I had no partner, no family living nearby, only myself and the constant, grinding responsibility of caring for a child whose needs never paused, never took a single day off. I loved Eli with everything in me, but love and exhaustion can live together in the same heart, just as easily as love and fear can. I began to feel invisible during those years. My friends slowly stopped inviting me to gatherings, assuming, correctly, that I could never find a sitter willing or able to handle Eli's specific needs. My romantic life had ended years earlier, my last relationship unable to withstand the demands of raising a child like Eli. I worked, I cared for my son, I slept too little, and I rarely, if ever, heard anyone tell me they loved me, not since my own mother passed away 3 years before. Then, 1 year ago, the messages began. I love you, sent every night at 9 o'clock from an unfamiliar number. At first, as I said, I assumed it was simply a mistake. But as the weeks passed and the messages continued without fail, every single night, I began to feel something unexpected stirring beneath my confusion. A strange, quiet comfort, even though I had no idea who was sending them or why. I asked Daniel directly one evening if he knew anything about it. He looked at me strangely for a moment, then shook his head and changed the subject quickly, mentioning something about Eli's bedtime routine instead. I did not think much of it at the time. I assumed perhaps he simply did not know either. The messages continued for months. I grew almost dependent on them, embarrassingly so, checking my phone nervously each evening as 9 o'clock approached, feeling a small, warm relief when the familiar 3 words finally appeared. I never learned anything more. No name, no explanation, nothing beyond those same 3 simple words, night after night after night. 6 months ago, Eli had one of the hardest nights of his life. A sudden thunderstorm rolled through our town, and the sound terrified him in a way I had never witnessed before. He screamed for nearly 3 hours, banging his head against his pillow, biting his own hand hard enough to leave deep marks across his skin. I held him as gently as I could, singing his calming song over and over, but nothing seemed to reach him through his fear. By the time he finally collapsed into exhausted sleep near midnight, I sat on his bedroom floor, completely drained, my own hands shaking from the effort of restraining him safely without hurting him. I cried harder that night than I had in years, alone on the carpet beside his bed, wondering quietly if I had the strength left to keep doing this, year after exhausting year, entirely alone. I thought about Eli's birth mother, the woman who had given him up years earlier. I had never judged her, not once, fully understanding now the impossible weight she must have carried before making that decision. Some nights, in my weakest moments, I wondered if I too might someday reach a breaking point I could not recover from. I checked my phone out of habit around midnight, though the nightly message always arrived earlier, at 9 o'clock precisely. Nothing new appeared, only the message I had already received hours before, sitting quietly in my inbox. I love you. I stared at those 3 words for a long time that night, tears falling freely down my face, wondering desperately who could possibly be sending them, and whether they had any idea how badly I needed exactly those words on a night like this one. I felt, for the first time in a long while, truly and completely alone. I had Eli, who I loved more than my own life, but who could not yet tell me in words that he loved me back. I had Daniel, kind and reliable, but ultimately just an employee, paid to be present in our lives a few nights each week. And I had this strange, unexplained voice from an unknown number, offering words of love from someone whose face I had never seen. I sat there for a long while longer, the storm finally passing outside, the house settling back into silence around me. I thought about calling my sister, but it was too late at night, and I did not want to wake her with my exhaustion. So I simply sat alone with Eli's quiet breathing beside me, and the glow of my phone screen, and those 3 small words that somehow always seemed to arrive exactly when I needed them most. 3 months ago, Daniel asked if he could speak with me privately after one of his overnight shifts. His expression was nervous, almost frightened, unlike his usual calm demeanor. "Sarah," he said, "I need to tell you something I should have told you a long time ago. I am afraid you might be upset with me." My stomach tightened with worry. "What is it?" I asked carefully. Daniel took a deep breath before continuing. "About a year ago," he said, "Eli and I were working on his tablet together one evening, practicing new phrases for his communication program. Eli found the words I and love and you among his available options, and he pressed them together, slowly, one at a time, clearly proud of forming a full sentence on his own for the very first time. I felt my heart begin to race as Daniel spoke. He asked me, Daniel continued, through pointing at more words on his tablet, if he could send those words to you, Mama. He had learned that phones could send messages, and he wanted you to have his words, even though he could not yet say them with his own voice. I did not know how to explain to a 9-year-old why that might be complicated, so I simply helped him. I set up a recurring message from an old phone I rarely use anymore, timed to send automatically every night at 9 o'clock, his usual bedtime. Tears began falling down my face immediately, faster than I could control them. Daniel continued quickly, clearly worried he had upset me terribly. "I should have told you right away," he said. I did not realize how long it would continue, how attached he would become to sending it every single night without fail. He checks the tablet himself now, every evening, making sure the message goes out exactly on time. It has become deeply important to him, Sarah. I am sorry for keeping this secret for so long. I could not speak for a long moment, overwhelmed completely by what I had just learned. Eli, I finally whispered, my son, had been telling me he loved me every single night for an entire year, in the only way his body and mind currently allowed him to express it. Not a stranger. Not a mistake. My own child, finding his own unique voice, and using it faithfully every night to say the words he could not yet speak aloud. "Can I see him?" I asked Daniel, my voice shaking. "He is asleep right now," Daniel said gently, "but he will likely wake soon for his nightly tablet check, the way he always does around this time." Sure enough, moments later Eli appeared in the hallway, tablet clutched tightly in his small hands, his eyes searching the room until they found mine. I knelt down to his level, my own eyes still wet with tears. "Eli," I said softly, "I love you too, sweetheart. So very much." He did not respond with words, as I expected, but he walked toward me slowly and pressed his small body against mine in a hug, something he rarely initiated on his own. We stayed like that for several long minutes, my son and I, finally understanding each other completely, in whatever language love had decided to take between us. In the weeks that followed, our life settled into a new and gentler rhythm. The nightly messages continued exactly as before, but now they carried an entirely different weight for me. Every evening at 9 o'clock, I read those 3 words knowing exactly who had sent them, picturing Eli's small finger pressing carefully across his tablet screen, choosing love as the message he wanted me to carry through the night. I thanked Daniel many times for helping Eli find this small bridge of communication, though he insisted repeatedly that he had simply followed Eli's own determined lead. "He is the one who wanted it," Daniel told me. "I only showed him how the technology worked." The choice to keep saying it every single night for a year, that was entirely Eli's own decision. I began working with Eli's speech therapist to expand this new discovery further. Together, we built additional message templates on his tablet, allowing him to send other thoughts throughout the day, not just at bedtime. "Good morning, Mama. I am happy today. I am scared of the loud noise." Slowly, a whole new world of connection opened between my son and me, one message at a time. Daniel continued his work with us, though now Eli often asked him directly, through his tablet, to help him send new kinds of messages to people in his life, to his teacher at school, to his grandmother during her weekly phone calls, to me throughout the day whenever a feeling became too large to hold inside silently. Eli's teacher told me, during one of our regular meetings, that she had noticed a real change in his confidence since the tablet messages began. "He seems to understand now that his words actually reach people," she explained. "Before, I think a part of him wondered if anyone was truly listening at all. Now he knows, without question, that his voice, however it travels, lands somewhere real." Not everyone understood or trusted this new arrangement once I began sharing it with people close to me. My sister, when I finally explained everything, expressed concern rather than the joy I had expected. "Sarah," she said carefully, "are you certain this Daniel is being honest with you? It seems strange that a young man you employ would set up something so personal between himself and your son without telling you immediately." I understood her concern, though it stung to hear. "He told me himself, eventually," I explained. "He was nervous about my reaction, that is all. There is nothing sinister here, Rachel. My son finally found a way to tell me he loves me. That is the entire story." My sister remained skeptical for some time, suggesting I should perhaps reconsider Daniel's continued employment, just to be safe, just in case there was something more concerning happening beneath the surface that I was choosing not to see. A friend from Eli's school support group reacted similarly when I shared the story during one of our meetings. "That seems like an unusual amount of access for a caregiver to have," she said carefully, glancing at the others in the small circle of parents. "Are you certain he is not manipulating Eli somehow, encouraging this attachment for his own reasons?" I felt my defensiveness rising quickly, though I tried to remain calm in my response. "Eli is not capable of being easily manipulated in the way you might think," I explained patiently. He is incredibly stubborn about his own choices, more so than most children his age. If he continues sending that message every single night, it is because he wants to, not because anyone is forcing him toward it. I have watched him choose those words deliberately, every single time, with complete intention behind each press of his finger. Despite my confidence, doubt crept into me during quiet moments alone. Had I trusted Daniel too quickly? Was there truly nothing more complicated happening beneath this seemingly innocent arrangement? I decided, after weeks of quiet worry, to observe more closely myself, staying awake one evening to watch Eli's nightly tablet routine without Daniel's assistance at all. I watched from the doorway as Eli, completely unprompted, picked up his tablet around 9 o'clock, navigated independently to his saved messages, and pressed send on the familiar phrase entirely on his own, without a single word or gesture of guidance from Daniel, who sat quietly across the room reading a book, clearly allowing Eli complete independence in the moment. My doubts dissolved entirely in that instant, replaced by quiet pride in watching my son's complete ownership over this small, beautiful act of communication. I invited my sister Rachel over one evening, specifically timed around 9 o'clock, without explaining exactly why. She arrived skeptical as always, clearly still harboring doubts about Daniel and the entire situation. We sat together in the living room, making quiet conversation, as the clock slowly approached the familiar hour. At exactly 9 o'clock, Eli walked into the room independently, tablet in hand, and settled himself on the couch beside us. Without any prompting from Daniel, who remained in the kitchen the entire time, Eli navigated his tablet screen and pressed the familiar sequence of words, his small face focused entirely on the task in front of him. My own phone buzzed seconds later. I love you. I showed Rachel the message immediately, then gestured toward Eli, who looked up at us both with the faintest hint of a proud smile crossing his face, an expression I had rarely seen from him before this entire journey began. Rachel's skepticism crumbled visibly in that single moment, replaced by tears welling quickly in her eyes. He did that himself, she whispered, almost disbelieving despite witnessing it directly. Completely himself, I confirmed. Daniel has not touched the tablet in months. This is entirely Eli's own choice, every single night, for an entire year now. Rachel reached over and hugged me tightly, apologizing repeatedly for ever doubting Daniel's intentions or questioning the beautiful thing happening quietly within our small family. I am so sorry, Sarah, she said through her tears. I did not understand. I was only trying to protect you, but I see now there was never anything here to protect you from, only something precious I almost convinced you to take away from your son. Daniel, overhearing the conversation from the kitchen doorway, smiled quietly but said nothing, allowing the moment to remain entirely between Eli, myself, and my sister. Word slowly spread through Eli's school support group as well, after Rachel mentioned the story to several other parents she had grown close to over the years. Many of them, parents of nonverbal children themselves, reached out to me individually, moved deeply by Eli's determination to express love in the only way fully available to him. Several began exploring similar communication strategies with their own children, inspired by Eli's quiet persistence over an entire year of unwavering nightly messages. It has been 3 months since that evening with Rachel. Eli still sends his nightly message faithfully, every single night at 9 o'clock, though now he has also learned to send other messages throughout his day, expanding his small but growing vocabulary of shared feelings between us. My name is Sarah. For 1 year, I received a text from an unknown number every single night, saying I love you. It was never a stranger, never a mistake, never anything to fear at all. It was my own son, finding his own determined way to say words his mouth could not yet form, using whatever tools were available to him, refusing to let his silence become the final word on his own heart. I want to say something to anyone listening to my story right now. Love does not always arrive in the form we expect. Sometimes it comes through spoken words, freely and easily. But sometimes it comes through a tablet screen, pressed carefully by a small determined finger, sent faithfully every night without fail, regardless of whether anyone fully understands its origin right away. If someone in your life communicates differently than you expect, whether through silence, through unusual methods, or through patterns that confuse you at first, do not assume the absence of words means the absence of feeling. My son taught me that love finds a way to speak, even when the mouth itself remains silent, even when the world around us insists communication must look one particular way to be considered real. Do not let fear or suspicion close your heart too quickly to something unfamiliar. I almost let doubt convince me to question a beautiful gift my son was offering me faithfully, every single night, simply because I did not understand its source immediately. Trust the people who show you patience and consistency over time, even when their methods initially seem strange or unclear. Eli and I continue building our own unique language together, one message at a time. Some nights, his message still says simply, "I love you." Other nights now, it says something new, something unexpected, something that makes me laugh or cry or simply marvel at the rich inner world unfolding slowly within my remarkable son. Thank you for listening to my story. Take care of yourselves, and take care of each other.
If you enjoyed this story, please like, subscribe, and share. See you in the next video.